Hello, welcome to Frostbites podcast. My name is Minna and you can find me on Ravelry and on Instagram as Finfrost. This is my podcast mostly about knitting, sometimes a bit of sewing and other crafts. And today I have a lot of finished objects, lots of books and some yarn and a bit of sewing as well. So let's get started. Okay, so the first finished object that I want to share with you is no longer with me because it was a gift for my colleague. I knitted her a pair of socks using my own pattern Desert Fox socks. It is a textured pattern, and this time I used a variegated yarn from the fiber seed. And this is the colorway Beach Party, and the sock base is Sprout Sock, which is a fingering weight yarn, a bit plumper than the normal fingering weight, I would say. It's a yarn that I got from my friend who went to Florida last autumn, summer, sometime last year. And it was a fairly easy knit, although the project was hibernating for a while because I had some bigger projects on my needles that had to be finished by a certain date. My friend when I was knitting them, she was complaining how she didn't have any thin wool socks that she could wear in her boots in the winter time. So I thought that I would give them for her as a present, just because. I had already knitted one sock at that time, and she tried it on and it was perfect for her foot, a little bit too large for mine, so a perfect excuse to give those for her. And then I have a couple of sweaters to share with you today. The other one I knitted quite a while ago. It was a test knit for the new Laine magazine. From their issue 5. And it is the Nutkin sweater by Claire Mountain. And it was, I think, my first sweater that was seamed and knitted in pieces. So here it is. It is quite a simple pattern, but it has some really interesting details, which I will show you now. So it is knit from the bottom up, seamed together, and it is, I think, when you knit your sweater in pieces, it's very important that you do swatch before you start, because there's no way you can try it on as you go. So you need to be sure that your gauge is correct to get a garment that fits you. So first of all, the hem is a bit curved, and it is done by using short rows and also with this slip stitch pattern on both sides and also in the back. The neck band is folded, so it's double thickness, and then in the end it is seamed to the inside. Also there is some patterning going on in the sleeves, And also the ribbing in the cuff is a bit unusual with some purl stitches. The same in the hem. I have to say that I'm not a master in seaming knitted pieces yet, because I noticed that I should have sewn every stitch in the seam instead of every other, like I did in some places. And I might re-seam this someday if it starts bothering me. But I think it's pretty good anyway. The yarn that I used is Islington, Kettle Yarn Company's Islington DK. I don't have the tag from the yarn anymore, but here is a card of her other yarns. So it's Kettle Yarn Company from the UK, and it is the recommended yarn for the Nutkin sweater. I can't remember anymore what the colorway was called. Mine is a bit lighter. It's almost natural white. It's a bit lighter in color than the one in the magazine. And I think this is a very good piece in my wardrobe because it goes pretty much with anything color-wise, and also because it's such a timeless design. I think it will be something that I will be able to wear for a long time. Another garment that I have made from the new Laine magazine is this cardigan that I'm wearing. It is the Kuru cardigan designed by Jonna Hietala. And here it is. And this one is also a very simple, elegant wardrobe staple. And this one for me wasn't a test knit this time. I had a chance to pre-knit this sweater and I loved it. I loved every stitch of it. It was so simple, and it was something that I knew that I was going to love wearing. Also, it is knitted in Aran weight, so it knits up pretty quickly. It took me about 2 weeks. And what else? I can show you the details in a little bit, but I will show you the yarn first. I asked Tuulia to dye me a sweater quantity of her Pohjan Akka yarn, which is, I think in Ravelry it says that it's DK weight, but I got the gauge pretty well for the Aran pattern or the design, and the colorway is called Sinappi, which is mustard in English. And I have one skein left. By the way, all the details of my projects can be found on my Ravelry page, so if you want to find out the colorway or something else that I forget to mention, then that's where you can find the information. And for this cardigan, I also have a bit more explanation of the modifications that I made. For this cardigan, so you can check them there. And I've been wearing this a lot ever since I finished it. It's been quite nice to wear this as an outer layer outside. We totally have had really nice summer weather, but some days it's been quite windy, and also some days have been only a little bit above 10 degrees, so you really need to have something to keep you warm, and this has been a perfect piece for that. So let me take this off so that I can show you the details. It is knitted from the top down in as one piece. There's raglan shaping. You knit all the way down, you knit the sleeves, and then you pick up for the neckline ribbing, and then you pick up for the button bands. As I said, I did some modifications for this. I did some waist shaping in the back. It is a straight back piece in the pattern, but I wanted to have some shaping in the back because of the way my back curves. I always need to alter also my sewing patterns for that. I should have probably made them also to the front, but this time I didn't. Then the pattern says for the hem only that you should bind off loosely, and as I was studying the pictures of the cardigan and reading the pattern, I knew that there was going to be an I-cord ending here in the button band and also in the neckline, and I wanted to have that same kind of effect in the hem and also in the sleeves. So I was pondering what to do. The I-cord bind off isn't stretchy, so it doesn't really work for the hem and the sleeves. But then I remembered that Bristol Ivy once said on her Instagram stories that she was going to make an I-cord bind off for something which needed to be stretchy, and she was going to do it the wrong side facing the right side, so knitting from the wrong side of the garment because it looked a bit like an I-cord. So I wanted to try it on this one, and I think it worked really well. As you can see, it is looking a bit like an I-cord, not quite as round, but still very neat, and it is super stretchy. It is as stretchy as the ribbing. And in the button band you don't really need to have the stretch, so the I-cord works fine for that. It is not quite as stretchy here, nor in the neckline. But the sleeves again are stretchy. I also wasn't sure if I would have to alternate skeins for this project. I know it's good to do in garments where you have larger surfaces of hand-dyed yarn. And as I started working on this, especially in the back, I noticed that it's not pulling at all. So I just kept on going with just one skein. And when I got to the bit where I did my back decreases, I noticed that the pooling started happening. So that's where I started alternating the skeins. And I think I went as far as those 2 balls lasted, and then I was almost to the ribbing already. And in the ribbing I didn't alternate skeins. So there's only a little bit here in the bottom of the sweater where I alternated. No, actually it's all the way from here, you can see it. It's all the way after I had separated the sleeves. So that's where I have alternated the skeins. And I did it in the side seam because I didn't want to have the edge of the button band having those floats of yarn. And also sometimes when you alternate skeins you might pull them a little bit too tight, and I didn't want to have it happening here in the front where you can see if the other side is a bit tighter than the other one. So that's why I did it in the side seam, or there's no seam, but where it would be. And then finally I sewed on these skinny fowl buttons that I bought from Namibia last November. I'm super happy that I got to use them. I still have quite a few sets of buttons that I bought from there, and I'm looking forward to be using them in other projects. And I think these go really well with this yarn. They were quite dusty. I had to wash the buttons, and I also had to sand the edges because the edges were quite sharp in some areas. And I love it that each of these buttons is different in shape and in size. I don't know how or what material this is. It might be some sort of pit from a fruit or something, I'm not sure. But it was quite easy to sand, and there is the picture in the buttons is carved. I'm trying to see if one of these would show off the carving really well. I don't know if you can see it. But I'm super happy with the buttons and the whole garment. And I think this, as well as Mon Manet sweater, which was from the previous Laine magazine, or was it an individual? I think it was an individual pattern from Jonna Hietala. I think they are both that kind of garments that anybody can wear them, and they go with anything in your wardrobe, and that you can never have too many of them. So I could easily have a couple more of these in my wardrobe in different colors. Then I have one finished objects in sewing. It is my linen wrap dress, which actually isn't a wrap dress, but it looks like it. I will put some photos here so that you can see it a bit better. This is something I made at my sewing class. The pattern was made to fit from scratch, and we discussed different options with my sewing teacher how to execute this idea that I had in mind. At first I was thinking about making it a real wrap dress, but then I didn't have a lot of material, which was a problem, because if it was a real wrap, then you would have to have both of the front pieces would have to be quite large in size. And then my teacher suggested that I could do a pleat here in the hem so that it would look like a wrap dress even though it wasn't, and I really like that idea. I don't have separately cut sleeves. This is the same style that I've used for a couple of tunics that I've made before. The fabric is extremely hard to photograph. It is, I think the green color is about the same as in my project back here. And then the other color is purple. But in some light it looks more green than it actually is. And I did all the seams in the green color and then all the top stitching in the purple color. And I learned so many things while I was making the pleat, for example. I have already worn this and I haven't ironed this because I wanted to show you that perhaps linen wasn't the best choice of fabric for this, because as soon as you start wearing it, this pleat turns or starts rolling that way. And as linen is such a hard fabric and it wrinkles very easily, once it starts rolling that way, it kind of sticks like that. It doesn't go back. I don't know if there is anything I can do to prevent that. I'm guessing it's just the nature of linen that it stays put once it starts wrinkling or folding. But anyway, I really like this pleat that we made, and I can show you the wrong side. Here it is. So when you make a pleat, you have to sew a seam in an ankle here. That's the part where the pleat pieces separate. And if you dismiss that, or if you leave that seam out, then there is too much tension to this point where the line of where the stitching comes from the top, that it can easily tear. So you have to make you have to stitch in an ankle to sort of get rid of the tension. And then in the hem, you need to make sure that the part that is behind or the part that is inside the pleat is shorter, so that it doesn't show when you're wearing it. So you turn the hem a bit more up, just a few millimeters, so that it doesn't show behind the top fabric. And then in the end you also sew this little corner into the edge for the same reason. So when you're wearing the dress, it's a bit hard for me to show, especially now that this pleat is turning. But as you can see, there's no peeking of the lower fabric. Because it is a bit shorter in the back. I also made a little belt. I just cut it in bias and fold it in like you have those ready-made bias tapes. So it's 4 times thick. I don't know how to say that. I have this little device that you can use when you iron the folds for the tape. So it's quite easy to make. And I did top stitching on both sides. And I didn't have enough fabric to create such a long belt. So there is my seam that I had to do because I had to cut this belt into pieces, but it doesn't show at all. So that is my linen dress. Oh, and I will show you one more thing. I usually make a little triangle here at the back of the neck to keep the interfacing and the facing from rolling up, so it keeps it nice and flat when you wear it. It's quite annoying if you don't do that. It's quite annoying when you wear a shirt or a dress and the facing just keeps poking out. So that's a little trick that you can do to prevent that. Okay, those are all my finished objects. And now we can move on to works in progress. First of all, I have a couple of socks that I'm knitting on, both in Regia yarns. I will show you the fingering weight ones first. I think, yes, I have the 4-ply Arne and Carlos design line Regia sock. The colorway is, doesn't show up. No, it's 03765, and it is this blue and purple colorway, and I am knitting the Vanilla is the New Black socks, and I'm hoping to make these for my father. He hasn't tried these on, so I'm not sure if they fit him. I don't remember what size or how many stitches I cast on for him before, so he has to try these on, and I really don't know how long I need to knit this before I start the dowing decreases. But that's almost finished, I think. And then I started last week these socks. This will be a gift. Just a plain vanilla sock. And this is also Regia's design line by Arne and Carlos, and it is a 6-ply yarn, so it's thicker. And this colorway is 3657. So it has a little bit of greens and reds. And the other sock is already finished, and with the other one I'm here knitting on the heel flap now. And I am doing a basic slipped stitch heel flap, and what I usually do is that I knit in garter stitch the 3 stitches on both ends of the needle. and it makes it easier to pick up the stitches once you have turned the heel. And I feel that the stitches in garter stitch don't stretch as much as if I had just knitted them or even slipped the first stitch. So that's what I usually do with my vanilla socks if I make a heel flap. Not much to tell about those socks. And then I have some more socks. Let's see. I dug out my monkey socks from last summer. I started these maybe June or July last year. I'm making very short legs on these, and this is the monkey sock pattern by Cookie A. And I'm using La Bien-Aimée merino sock, I think. It's leftover yarn from my boxy sweater by Hohi. And the pink is also La Bien-Aimée. I think it's BFL sock, and the colorway is Amy's lipstick. I don't remember the colorway for the main color. So last summer I had already finished the first one, and I had started the second one. I think I wasn't even starting the heel yet. So since then, a couple of weeks ago when we suddenly got really warm weather, I didn't want to knit on my big sweaters, but instead I wanted to see what kind of sock projects that I had from last summer, and I found these, and these are almost finished. I only have to do the toe decreases, maybe a couple of more rounds, and then they are finished. Not much yarn left, but I think I can finish this, which will be perfect. I have also started knitting on a wrap, which will probably be a design. And this is how far I am. It's more of a swatch phase right now. I might rip this out and do something completely different. I'm not sure. I think it's going to be a rectangular wrap, but that can also change. I've been just playing with ideas, and I don't think you really need to swatch a lot with this kind of shawl, because the beginnings are so small that it's actually a swatch in itself, and if it doesn't work out, I can just rip it out and reknit and start something else. This is my yarn, and I have two other shades, lighter shades from this, so it's going to be a gradient shawl. And the yarn is dyed by my friend Tiziana in Italy, and that is her card. But there isn't really a lot to tell about this design yet. And then finally I also have my arboreal sweater, but I haven't really been working on this one because I've been quite busy with my Laine-knitting. But I will show you. So last time I think I had knitted the first sleeve, and then I ran out of yarn and I got some more yarn, and I have knitted a couple of rows of the sleeve here, but I had to take it off because, well, I didn't have to rip back, but I had to take the needles off because I need them for something else. And I'm using here my Cocoa Knits leather cord for when you have to put your stitches on hold. It comes, I don't have it here, but it comes with a little needle tip that you can screw on the cord, and then it's easy to move your stitches or remove them from the cord. And in the package you get 3 different cords, one I think 2 shorter ones and then 1 longer one. At first I was a bit disappointed in these because the leather cord is very sticky or rough. It's not smooth at all. And with some yarns I found it really hard to get the cord to slide through the stitches. I don't know if I was using the wrong end, because it feels a bit smoother the other way than what it feels the other way. So I might have screwed the needle tip on the wrong end. But with this yarn it was quite okay. I managed to pull it through, but as you can see, it's not really going smoothly. It goes smoothly this way, but then the other way it just sticks to the yarn and it's really hard to pull, and you can see little bits of the fiber just come off of the stitches or the yarn. So I don't know if I'm using it the wrong way, but it wasn't exactly what I was hoping it to be. I thought that it would be very smooth, so it would be really easy to just move the stitches around. I did put some hand balm on it to make it a bit softer. I don't know if it helped or if it made it even worse. But I think it's also, it might even out, the surface of the leather might even out just by using it more. But I love the idea that you can just screw the needle tip to it and it's very easy to use in that way. And this sweater I'm knitting in Louhittaren Luola Knitloff's Lair Kaino yarn, which is their Kainu Grey Finnish. It's a Finnish rare breed yarn, and the grey is natural grey and the yellow is, I think, keltamulta colorway, and it's super soft. I need to start working on this one as well. Again, I'm pretty sure that I will need this summer because Arctic weather. There was a couple of weeks ago, when I think Finland was the warmest place in Europe, which was very unusual. And I think our springtime lasted only for a week. I thought that the snow would never melt because we had so much snow this year, but in a week it was all gone. And now everything is blooming and it's really beautiful and very summery, which is really nice. The final segment will be everything new that I have acquired since my last episode. I have a pile of books that I want to show you first. Or books and magazines. Here they are. I will go them in the order that I have gotten them. First of all, Marlisle, A New Direction in Knitting by Anna Maltz. This is a book that I won from East London Knits Renee's giveaway in her podcast. It's a brand new book, and I've been looking at these patterns even before I won this book because they are just gorgeous, and I love the new way of knitting, as the name suggests. It is colorway, and not colorway, it's color work in which combines traditional color work and marling. And I think it's super clever. I love these mittens. And my favorite from this book is the Trembling Sweater, which is a yoke sweater with colorwork yoke. And I actually bought yarn for this from Edinburgh, but I have already started using it for something else, so it will have to wait, and I have to get some other yarn for it. But I think someday I will knit this because I really love that clever design in the yoke. There's a lot of reading in this book as well. She explains the technique in the beginning and the kind of fabric that you get, and making choices on the sizing and taking measurements, choosing needles and yarn. I've only read a couple of pages so far, but I think it will be interesting to read even if I don't start working on any of the patterns anytime soon. And I also like the visual look of the book. It's really beautiful, really nicely put together. And I also got a little card. And she signed it. Then I ordered 2 stitch dictionaries. I've been wanting to buy a very good stitch dictionary for quite a long time now, and finally I was looking for one in Edinburgh, but I couldn't find exactly what I wanted, and then they're quite heavy, so I didn't want to also carry heaps of books home from there. So I ordered these 2 books. The first one is A Treasury of Knitting Patterns by Barbara G. Walker. I think it's a classic and it's part of a series of books. I think there's at least 4 or 5 of these treasury of knitting books, and it looks a bit old-fashioned. All the photos are black and white. There's no charts. All the instructions are written. But there are just so many inspirational knitting patterns that I just really want to start trying them out. I've already marked a few in the book that I want to try out. There's actually the monkey socks stitch pattern in here as well. And another one is the Japanese Knitting Stitch Bible, which I had already browsed before. It is just gorgeous. So many intricate stitch patterns in this book. For yokes and for edgings. And then just normal, all kinds of very intricate patterns. So those will be something that I will be using years and years. And then I have 2 magazines. The new issue of Taito magazine, which is a Finnish craft association publication. There are always very interesting articles about people who are makers in Finland, and then a few different patterns or instructions on different crafts. There's also an article about natural dyeing, which will be interesting to read, as I have done some natural dyeing myself last summer, and I'm hoping to do more this summer. There's a pattern and the instructions for making a bag and a kitchen towel in crochet. A couple of crochet projects. And stitching, embroidery. There's also an article about yarn and craft shops in Copenhagen. Very good summer reading for me. And then finally, of course, the 5th issue of the Laine magazine, which was again just stunning. I want to make so many things out of this magazine. I think Susan Sommer's wrap or shawl or whatever it is called. What do they call it? Shawl. With garter stitch and brioche is beautiful. And then I think my favorite is Lotta dress, which is the one featured in the cover. It is just so beautiful. And it's knitted in tuku wool sock. It is just gorgeous. And there's an article about Edinburgh. And Twisted Finch. Rosa Pomar, the Portuguese yarn shop owner, was very interesting. I already read that. Isolde Teague. Oh, and I really like these socks as well. Would be perfect summer knitting. Meerschaum by Sashiko Bergin. And I also like Thea Coleman's Brennivin cardigan. A gorgeous, gorgeous book. And so beautiful photos, and it's just perfect. So if you haven't gotten your copy yet, go and get it, because it's gorgeous. I think that's all. No, that's not all. I still have some new yarn that I want to show you. Since my last episode, I received one skein from Tuscan Knits Maria, and I already forgot which one of these it was, because I already had two from her before and I received a third one. And I think they go so well together, and I think they need to be in the same project. Something squishy and beautiful. So these are all in her fur base, which is 100% superwash merino. It's fingering weight singles, and the colorways are mushroom patch, bit of jam, and Cordelia. I think it was this one that I received, but I'm quite sure. Perfect. And then last weekend I went to Kuopio. It's a city in eastern Finland, and I went to the yarn shop Kässäkerho Pompom, which I have wanted to visit earlier, but it wasn't open when I last went there. I don't go there that often. But this time it was open, and I actually was going to get some tweed yarn that she has. It's their own pom-pom yarn. But then I saw these, and I just couldn't resist. I had been looking online just a couple of days earlier for single ply fin sheep yarn, and I couldn't find any. I knew that she was carrying this, but I didn't know that it was already on the shelves, so to speak. So I chose these three colors, and this is Suoma Single. It's a 50 grams skein, fingering weight single ply yarn, fin sheep, non-superwash, and it's hand dyed in Finland also, and it doesn't say which colorways these are. This is a pale pink, and then this gray. To me it looks a bit like there is a little bit of pink undertones, and then this purple. And I think they go so nicely together, and I think I might have to get some more in Jyväskylä Knit Festival this summer, because she's coming. She's one of the vendors there, and I'm pretty sure that she will bring these to the festival. I'm thinking a shawl or a sweater if I get some more. Gorgeous yarn. And even though it's woolly wool, it feels really soft. I think it feels a bit softer than tuku wool, even though tuku wool is also surprisingly soft. But I think this is even more soft. It's just gorgeous. And I'm happy that we have a single ply yarn option now also from our own native sheep. I wonder if anyone does it in Kainu Grey. Let me know if you have heard a single ply Kainu Grey yarn. That would be awesome. Okay, now I think it is time to stop. There were so many projects that I shared with you today. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, happy summer, happy knitting, happy winter time if you're in the southern hemisphere. And I will see you next time. Bye.